What's up, guys, and welcome to One Take. Tonight, we're talking about Christopher Nolan's Tenet and checking in on how the release date is looking for that movie. I'm Gil. I'm here with my brother, Adam.
Hello.
And my tech guy / brother, Alon.
Yo.
And before we get into it, I should say we all know that coronavirus has impacted people and society in ways far more serious and significant than movie release dates. But I figure for that, you can turn on the news, you can look out the window. Here at One Take, we're looking for some levity. So we're going to talk about movie release dates.
Well said.
First off, a bunch of movies have pushed their release. And some of them we really care about and we're looking forward to. Alon, what would you say is the movie you were most looking forward to so far that you're now not going to get to see for a while?
Spider-Man.
Spider-Man, which wouldn't have been released yet, but how about some Quiet Place 2? Scoob? No, Scoob is being released straight to digital May 15th.
Oh, fantastic.
Let me jump over to Adam. So A Quiet Place 2.
For me, it's hands down, it's No Time to Die.
The new James Bond movie.
My friend Casey's been rewatching all the James Bonds, like starting with the old ones.
Yeah.
And he really hyped this movie up for me, and we rewatched some of the newer ones, and I got really excited for it. And then, lo and behold, this happened.
Yeah, exactly. So for me, it's probably number one, A Quiet Place 2, and then just behind that is No Time to Die. Because the idea of a James Bond movie that puts a cap on the end of a James Bond arc and sort of a hypothetical final Bond movie is pretty exciting to me. But the one I've probably been most worried about, the movie I've been most hyped for this year, is Christopher Nolan's Tenet. It's a Christopher Nolan movie, it's a sci-fi, and it involves one of my favorite sci-fi concepts, time travel or time manipulation of some sort. Have you been on the hype train with me for this one, Adam?
Yeah, definitely. The problem is there's not much to the hype train because we know so little about it.
Which is one of the things that's great about Christopher Nolan movies. I love how he does a good job of showing us the trailer, showing us just enough to get excited, but not giving up everything. I mean, if I were a really strong-willed person, I would not watch any movie trailers because I love going into a movie knowing nothing about it, but I'm not strong-willed enough. So it's great there are filmmakers like Christopher Nolan who can kind of straddle that line. But anyway, without burying the lead further, the big news today is that John Fithian, the CEO of the National Association of Theater Owners, or NATO, had a big interview with Variety, and one of the main topics they talked about was Tenet, because all those movies have been pushing their release dates, but Warner Brothers has held strong. July 17th is the release date for Tenet, and as of today, they still haven't pushed it. So in the interview with John, he basically said their plan is to open up most movie chains by mid-July, just in time for Tenet and Mulan, which is now supposed to release July 24th, so a week after Tenet. And by the way, the National Association of Theater Owners, if you couldn't guess, is basically an organization, movie theater owners, big chains like AMC, all got together, formed this company as a way to sort of look out for their interests.
Wow. All this time, I thought NATO was a totally different
And they have to protect themselves sort of in their dealings with movie studios. One of the big sticking points with movie studios is theaters are very afraid of movie studios releasing things direct to digital, right? Because that, of course, isn't great for theaters. So that has been a sensitive issue during coronavirus with things like Scoob being released direct to digital.
Is that a Scooby-Doo movie?
That is the Scooby-Doo movie. It's a CGI Scooby-Doo movie, which is actually going to be the formation of the Hanna-Barbera universe. Because it includes characters besides just the Scooby Gang.
And is that, what studio owns that?
Hanna-Barbera?
Yeah,
I don't know. Tech guy, look into that while we keep going. So John Fithian, here's a direct quote from him in the Variety article. "We've put together a task force of our members, as well as experts on health and safety and supply chains. We're planning for how we open up our seating so we can adhere to strict social distancing guidelines. We're encouraging companies to lean in on reserved ticketing and to train their staff to prevent congestion in the lobbies. Members are staggering show times so everyone isn't arriving at the multiplex at the same time. We are considering innovative ways to sell concessions in order to reduce human contact, and we're making sure that employees stay home if they feel sick.
That was authoritative.
Yeah, and I don't know what John Fithian sounds like, but to me, that is just what an important person would sound like, and that's what I plan to sound like when, hopefully one day.
I think when we reach 1,000 subscribers, your voice is just magically gonna change into that.
You'll slowly see the transition. So just a couple of other highlights from the interview. They point out the fact that at that time, basically nothing else will be playing. You could literally have Tenet playing for a week on every screen in the U.S., and that'll help with social distancing, right? You don't have to have everybody packed into one auditorium. You could have 15 auditoriums in one multiplex playing it at the same time. So that might help get back some of the box office that'll be lost from people being hesitant to go out to the movies.
So it's interesting. I'm wondering concretely how this would work. So let's say you're going with your family. Mm-hmm. Obviously, then it doesn't matter. You're not going to try to sit, every other seat, for example, with the people you've been isolating with anyway. But you also don't want to necessarily just say groups of people are allowed to be next to each other and then we separate the groups, because that could encourage people who have not been isolating with each other to then go and meet and get too close in person.
Right. You could imagine they'd have to lean pretty heavily, as John said, into reserved seating. You could even do a check on if 5 people have the same last name, they can all sit clustered together. That feels a little bit too advanced. I doubt they're going to program their systems to do that. But I guess first question, do you even think it's realistic that movie theaters will open up by mid-July?
I think it can be done if it's a matter of financial necessity for them. I think they can pull it off. I don't see the only reason I see for them to try to do it would be money, because otherwise it sounds really difficult and it sounds like a big hassle for everyone.
Right, and you would only see it happening if it's not going to be only movie theaters have reopened. This is only going to happen if businesses are starting to reopen, restaurants are starting to reopen, etc.
Yeah, because the thing is, the movie theater experience is already a pretty structured thing. Like, you kind of know where you're going to walk in when you get there. You know where the food is. A lot of places already have reserved or designated seating, not all of them, but they can implement that too. And they already have people whose job it is to come in and check the situation out. So I don't think it would take that much to just come up with some smart ways of limiting the number of people in each theater. You could, like they mentioned, you can stagger showtimes. You can even have showtimes happen at the same time and just say, okay, like, a quarter of you go into this theater, a quarter of you into that, and so on.
Well, and I think that's exactly what he's saying they would do. They already do that for major releases. They will have a movie playing across multiple auditoriums basically at the same time. So I definitely think that's part of the plan. Before theaters in the U.S. shut down, they actually did try to implement limits on how many people you can have in at once. I think AMC was doing 50% capacity. That lasted about a week before they just shut down altogether. And I will say, a lot of articles written about this, they do leave out one quote where John Fithian freely admits there could be curveballs. That's the words that he uses. He says that their plan to open by mid-July is currently based on advice from the CDC, that by that point, new cases will have fallen off significantly, but he admits that might not happen. Or it might happen temporarily, then the winter hits, and it comes back even worse. So it might sound like he's being overly optimistic if you leave that part out, but I do think he's being optimistic trying to open by July, but he does acknowledge that might not happen.
Let's say that it is on the way out at that point, or it's at least looking good. That would be such a great way to celebrate.
No, I was thinking about that. If we were able to open and everybody was confident that it was safe to go out at this point, I could imagine a celebratory reopening of theaters, maybe playing classic movies, throw Indiana Jones and The Last Crusade up, and do some kind of a celebration of going back to the theaters. But my worry is that even if it's safe to open in mid-July, I'm afraid the public perception is that it might feel a little bit premature. So my other question is, okay, maybe they'll be able to open. Will people want to go? Or will it be like China, where some movie theaters reopened, a few days later they shut down again? Because I think if you looked at the total box office draw when China reopened, it was something insane, like a few $100s or a few $1,000. So nobody showed up. Do you think that's a possibility in the U.S.?
It's possible, but right now I feel like the spirit of the country is moving toward people getting restless and wanting to go out and do things. We just got a message on our answering machine today telling us that certain parks in the state are reopening and telling us the rules about how we can use them. I think people really want to get out and do something, and the movie theater is a relatively safe thing to do given the way that they plan to do it. Especially right now, a lot of people are still going to grocery stores. They have different rules about how to do it, but that involves moving around, touching things, interacting with people. So the movie theater, I think, done the right way, would actually be safer.
Right. You could imagine. I mean, I've seen some grocery stores where you wait in line to get in. Everybody's standing 6 feet apart in line. Only a certain number of people are allowed in at once. So you could imagine a relatively safe way to do it. But like I said, if theaters are one of the first things to open up, I think people might be a little bit uncomfortable. If you open up some businesses in June, people start getting more comfortable going out, and then movie theaters come into it, I could see it happening. Now, if theaters don't reopen mid-July, what I would love to see is some creative solutions. Now, we've seen some major releases like the new Trolls movie get released straight to digital, straight to home video, but that's a tough sell. The theater owners don't like that. In fact, Universal talked about how after the success with Trolls, they're thinking about using a home and theatrical simultaneous release model in the future. And they didn't say they're going to do it for every movie. They didn't say they were going to do it for major releases. They just said we may consider doing this more in the future. In AMC, the major movie chain, did not react well. They put out a whole statement saying we will not screen any Universal movies ever again. No Fast and Furious. I'm sure they'll go back on that, but it is a very touchy subject. So I wonder if there are ways to do releases outside the theater without annoying theater chains. So here's a couple of ideas I'll throw at you. Number one, you do a profit share where movie theaters sponsor outdoor screenings. It could be drive-in, where it's really safe. You have families isolated from each other in different vehicles, or even outdoor seating with social distancing enforced, where I think being outdoors is generally considered to be safer than being locked up in a room with a bunch of people.
Definitely.
So I would love to see that. And come July, it'll be warm, it'll be nice out. How great would it be? You go to the park and you see a great Christopher Nolan movie.
The only way they could do that, though, is if they let you bring your own snacks and drinks.
Oh, they don't love that. They don't love that. Well, okay, speaking of that, here's another idea I'll throw at you. You release Tenet at home, but, again, profit share with theater chains, and maybe they set up some kind of a concessions delivery system. You work with Uber Eats, you work with Seamless, you bundle it, so you pay $50, you get to watch Tenet, and someone delivers a bunch of popcorn and candy to your house.
You know, now what you're talking about is, so movie theaters were already struggling before all this happened. I'm shocked that they haven't folded already. And the only thing I could think for them, let's say movie theaters really just become a thing of the past, it's possible they're experts on crafting. Well, some of them are experts on crafting a good movie watching experience that includes the food and the atmosphere. So you might be onto something in the sense of something they could do to bring a good atmosphere to your home for a fun event to sit down and watch a movie.
Yeah, even if they're somehow collaborating with local restaurants, and there's, again, some kind of a profit share set up. So it's a temporary situation. You don't piss off John Fithian. And hopefully John Fithian's listening, because I think these are a couple of great ideas here.
Here's an idea.
Okay,
all right,
hit me with it.
You release it digitally at home, but the last 20 minutes, gone. You don't get to watch those. You then have to wait until theaters reopen, then you can go watch it.
Or there was some announcement of a technology being released a year or two ago where you would have to watch advertisements on your iPhone or your iPad, and it has eye tracking technology. So you have to watch 20 minutes of commercials, and anytime you look away, the screen detects it and it stops. So you've got to watch it for 20 minutes, and you get a free movie ticket. So you release Tenet at home, every 10 minutes commercial. If you look away, the movie starts over.
That sounds like the worst idea ever.
All right, we've got a couple good ideas, a couple bad ideas, but we're brainstorming. So I think there's something to work with here. Anyway, a couple of other tidbits from the article, from the interview. So, Georgia is one of the first states that's starting to open things up.
Mhm.
They're planning to open up movie theaters. So in the interview, Variety asked John Fithian, do you have a sense of how many theaters will be open in Georgia this week? And he said, I have not talked to one exhibitor who is going to be open this week. So it sounds like they are not going to be opening this week.
Either that or he just doesn't talk to a lot of people.
Yeah.
That's not too surprising because I think people are getting kind of worried about Georgia opening up as early as it is. But the fact that people are worried means there's plenty of people in Georgia who are worried about it too and will probably just of their own choice elect not to just jump right in.
Right. It'll sort of be a voluntary lockdown versus the enforced one that we have now.
Right. And for the first couple of weeks of all of this, many people were locked down anyway, and it was voluntary.
Yeah, exactly. So that's, we kind of alluded to that earlier. Theaters might open up in July. Doesn't mean people are actually going to go to them. And actually, they asked John Fithian about that. They said Disney and Warner Brothers are both taking big risks, being the first ones to release movies after theaters open up. Warner Bros. With Tenet, Disney with Mulan. So they asked the question, if these movies start to underperform, the studios are going to want to recoup that by perhaps dropping them on digital sooner rather than later. And they asked Fithian, will you let them do that? And he basically sidestepped the question, said, we're going the extra mile. We're going to do everything we can to make it a good, safe experience. So he's really hoping that doesn't happen. And reading between the lines, I think he's saying, if they go to on demand, I'm not going to be happy about that. That's my interpretation.
You do not want to mess with him.
Adam, a question for you. What do you miss more right now? Movie theaters or gyms? If you could have one back, what would it be?
All right, if you ask me,
one take cred is on the line.
If you asked me like a week ago, I would have said the gym.
Yeah.
But I'm reaching the point of like restlessness, and I just want entertainment and to feel like I can go have fun. And movie theater just sounds like a great time right now.
Yeah, and like we said at the beginning of this, Tenet is the movie I am most excited for this year. So I'll be pretty upset if I don't get to see it come July. Here's another idea. They release it at home, but you're only allowed to watch it with a VR headset where it simulates you being in a movie theater. And you can choose which movie theater you go to based off locality, what's nearby. So you'll be in an AMC theater or a bow tie theater, and then the profit share. Probably the worst idea we put out.
Well,
on this one.
I've been in a VR movie theater before, and it was kind of fun. And
you were throwing popcorn at everybody,
yeah, I got to
right?
throw popcorn at people.
All right, one last little tidbit. Here's just a piece of positivity for you to end on. This is going to put a smile on your face. Bend, Oregon. That is the location of the only remaining Blockbuster video rental store.
I thought it was okay. I thought there was one in Alaska.
There was one in Alaska. I think they've closed down. So this is the last one, Bend, Oregon. And during all of this, during COVID-19 coronavirus, staying open.
Wow.
They only allow 10 people in at a time. They're doing social distancing.
Does it take much effort to do that? And actually, I feel like it could see more business during this time because it's like such a it's some reason to leave the house and go do something. It's
the one place you can go.
Yeah.
I'm going to go to the grocery store is one place, and then Blockbuster.
I mean, I would love to go to Blockbuster now. Being stuck here at our parents' house, surrounded by all the nostalgia of our childhood.
Yeah, that's right.
Man, Blockbuster sounds great.
We literally have a rack over there with a Nintendo on it, what's the Dream? What was Dreamcast?
I just
Genesis.
got the Game Boy Color working again.
We have the Sega Master controllers and games. We haven't been able to find the actual console itself.
It's in here somewhere.
Where's that Intellivision at?
I don't know. I know we have an Intellivision somewhere in this basement. And we will find it.
But yeah, nothing would round it all together like a good trip to Blockbuster.
Yeah, how far away is well, we don't want to triangulate our position, but road trip to Bend, Oregon. Let's go check out the final Blockbuster. One Take presents. All right, well, I guess with that, any other thoughts on Tenet, on this whole situation before we wrap things up?
I'm I really want to see Tenet.
I know.
Yeah. I mean, to go back to your question about the gym versus movie theater, I didn't really care about the movie theater this whole time because there haven't been any movies I cared about. But
Yeah.
this movie is making me really miss the theater.
Yeah. Yeah, same here. So fingers crossed that, fingers crossed for many reasons we're allowed to leave the house soon. But at least in the top 20 reasons that I want to leave the house, by mid-July, Tenet is somewhere up there.
Would you go? Let's say they do open, but it's unclear how good the situation is. Would you go?
I would have to feel it out. I guess a couple things to consider. First off, if I went, I'd probably bring a hand sanitizer.
Yeah.
I've got the N95 mask on, maybe gloves.
Sit in the back.
Sit in the back or somehow just distance myself from other people. Social distancing, as they call it. Also, it would depend on if I'm still staying with my parents, because I wouldn't want to catch it and then bring it back home. But that would be, so far I've done a good job of not feeling very tempted to leave the house, besides, walks and runs and that sort of thing. This would be something that makes me start to
consider.
I might start to consider it.
How much your parents' lives are worth to you.
What about you? Would you go?
Here's what I would do. I'd bribe the movie theater to let me sit in like the projectionist booth and watch from up there.
Damn, I used to work at a movie theater, volunteer-run small nonprofit movie theater, and we used to do that. After the theater closed, we would plug our Nintendo Wii into the projector and play Mario Party or Smash Bros. On the big screen. We would watch just old movies, Shaun of the Dead. Actually, at the time, that movie wasn't old, but
yeah.
Any movie we wanted to watch, we would throw it up there on the big screen. It was great. So, anyway, nice memory to end on, a little bit of nostalgia. Yeah. So I think with that, we can say thanks for watching. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and of course, the bell icon so you get notified the next time we go live. And if you have any thoughts on what we talked about today, do you think movie theaters will realistically open by mid-July? Which movies that have been delayed are you most disappointed about? And do you have any other thoughts on this situation? Let us know in the comments and we'll keep the conversation going. So with that, thanks for watching and we'll see you. Oh, Xavier Lee in the chat says, cheers. Guys. Cheers to you, Xavier. And with that, have a good night. Thanks for watching and we'll see you on the next One Take.